Toasted Hey guys, thanks for taking time out of your night to be here. We're gonna just give this another minute or two for anyone hopping on late, and then I'll get going here. Okay, so just another minute or two. What's up, Greg?
Hey, Ash, how are you?
Good. How are
Find the
you?
mute. Had to find the mute button or unmute button.
Yeah. How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good. You all ready for Christmas?
Ha, just dropped. We just dropped off some Christmas gifts and run. It's a crazy week.
Yeah. 4 kids, I bet. I bet. All right, guys. So I'm gonna get started here. I'm gonna share my screen in a minute, but first of all, thanks again for taking time out of your Tuesday night to hop on. We're going to do a talk tonight on possession. So if you give me 1 second, I'll share my screen with you. Okay, so again, we're going to do a talk tonight on possession. Let's start with why. Why we possess the ball. So aside from it being an attractive style of play, we want to possess the ball in order to break down and unbalance opponents. Uh, we want to progress the ball. We want to get forward and score goals. And we want to win games. So just kind of wanted to start that precedent. It seems pretty obvious, but sometimes I think we forget why we're playing possession style soccer. It needs to be with a purpose. Griff talked about that last year a lot. That a lot of the things that we do in training with possession needs to be done with a purpose. So let's talk about where we start with this. We start with individual possession. Some of the principles of this would be receiving the ball, protecting the ball, showing the ball, and outplaying opponents. So when we talk about a player that is good at individually possessing the ball, what are some of the characteristics there? Is the player comfortable receiving the ball in tight spaces? Do they have a picture of what they're going to do with the ball before it arrives? Can they recognize where the pressure is? Is it in front of them, behind them, from the side of them? Do they have solutions rather than just moves? I think here at Union, we do a great job of the repetition and of teaching the moves. Now, can we put them in settings? Can we put them in settings where they have to apply and find solutions rather than just allow them to go through the repetition without ever having to use those and solve things in play? Do players use their body well to hide and protect the ball? Do they know when they can show to the ball to draw and outplay pressure? Can our players use both feet? Are they unpredictable in their play? Are they confident and fearless, and do they trust themselves? And do they have excellent balance, change of direction, and key physical characteristics with a range of movement skills? So this is just kind of a starting point. Again, I think we do a really good job at our 77 and 99 age groups of sort of setting this foundation so that we can have teams that play possession style soccer. So I'm just going to move forward into session planning. So when we design a session based around possession, what are we trying to accomplish in possession? So again, rather than just putting down a grid and having 6v6 where we connect 6 passes to equal a point, can we have a purpose in what we're doing? Can we tailor that for our teams? So I just put some thoughts down that I have when I step in to train teams. If they ask me to do a possession practice, I'm always asking, does this team need to do a better job of playing through the midfield? Is it something that we need to focus our possession in the midfield? How well is the group moving the ball forward to possess it in their half? Do they struggle to possess the ball in the opponent's half? Are we constantly losing possession in our own half? Do we have problems playing around the back, or do we have problems playing through the midfield, and why? Are we struggling to break lines and penetrate? So maybe we can connect 25 passes, but we never actually do anything with the ball to get forward. And do we need to increase our speed of play and possession, right? So we all know if we can possess the ball, but it's slow motion, are we actually successful at possessing the ball? So a session structure. So if I'm going to step in and do a possession session, this is usually where I'll go with it. I'll start with some sort of rondo. I'll get into a passing pattern that's very specific to what I'm trying to accomplish in possession. I go forward with small sided, and then I get into an expanded. We started with rondo, so I just kind of wanted to show a little video here. I think we all know who Pep Guardiola is. He's one of the best with his teams at possession style soccer, first with Barca, then with Bayern, and now with Man City. So I had a little video clip here that I just wanted to show you guys. Give me a minute. I'll show you that. Okay. Be about 5 minutes.
psychology. Even a Rondo, 100% don't do it at all. Like I said, I like them. Actually, I'm getting a shot. Custom test.
A story told by Dominic Torrent, a former coach at Barcelona and Bayern, shows the process that took place after Guardiola arrived in Munich. In Marty Perrinal's book, Pep Guardiola: The Evolution, Torrent explains the transformation on the training pitch. What happened with the Rondos is probably the best example of the process of adaptation they all went through, he said. The players started out seeing them as a bit of a laugh, a good way to start and end the warm-ups. The ball could end 10 metres outside of the perimeter of the Rondo circle without ever having touched the ground, but from day one, Pep insisted that they pay attention to how they positioned themselves, how they received the ball, whether they controlled it with their left or right foot. The Bayern players grasped his point very quickly. I remember one day comparing the Rondos of the early days with what they'd become in the end. It was amazing, like looking at two entirely different exercises. By the end of our time there, that ball was flying. The same level of discipline has been instilled at Manchester City, and the players, already performing at an extraordinarily high level, will only get better as time progresses. The Rondo, a humble training drill, has been a crucial part of the team's improvement over the last 2 years. It's an encapsulation of Pep Guardiola's coaching philosophy, a conduit through which his basic principles are channeled onto the pitch. Hi guys.
So I think towards the end, you guys could hear volume. There might have been a little bit of an issue in the beginning, but I'll share that clip with you again. But pretty much just to summarize, it was just about the importance of the Rondo. And I think you heard the important things at the end about the things that Pep Guardiola focuses on, and how even at the highest level, something so simple can bring about really great results for each group. So with that, we'll kind of move on. So I started with Rondo variations, which you just heard about. Pep uses the 8v2 a lot. I think we also talked about a 5v2 and a 6v2 and a 3v1. So typically with like 7v7 and 9v9 groups, I like to use a 3v1 to get started, just so that they can sort of see a picture of their shape. A triangle, what it means to support angles, things like that. And then I'll move on and progress to higher numbers, just so that they can start to work on speed of play and decision making and things like that. If you guys remember, Casper did a great presentation for us last year in Essex Gym of a moving Rondo. It looked like the picture over here to the right. There were 6 grids, 3 teams of 4. And you numbered each player. So let's say the blue group, this is 1, 2, 3, and 4. Maybe I call number 4. The 4 for each group goes over and defends. The team in possession is trying to connect a certain amount of passes and then move to the next grid. But we have that on our YouTube channel. If you wanna find it, it was Mike Casper's demo from last winter in Essex Gym. Another Rondo, maybe we did this all the time at the Naval Academy. You have 2 teams, 2 grids, maybe let's say 7 on each team. You send 2 over from each group, and they stay in there defending until you yell switch. Then these 2 would come back and 2 more would go over. So again, it's simple. It just adds a transitional element to the Rondo, where they have to transition quickly, communicate a little bit. And we would probably focus on counting the passes here, just to see which group can get the most passes. Obviously, all of these things you can add touch restrictions depending on where your team is. And then this is the last one that I started to use this year. This is an Ajax Rondo. So this would be something more specific to, let's say, my midfielders aren't combining centrally, or maybe they're not working off each other, or they're making the same runs, or maybe just one person's doing all the work. You can set up 4 grids like this. It's a 2v1 situation in each grid. And then your 2 central midfielders, or 2 of your midfielders, are neutral players in here. So what happens is, maybe my restriction is in each grid, you've got to connect 5 passes before you get into a different grid. So everyone stays where they are except the center midfielders. One will go in and help these two combine for a 3v1. Once they get 5 passes, the ball has to move to another grid. This midfielder comes back, and this one will go over. So it forces them to work on rotating and communication, and also picking up cues. So this guy can sort of recognize when his head comes up, when he's about to play, and he can look to get in to provide support. So I like this one a lot in terms of gearing up to do a session on playing through the midfield and possessing in the midfield. And then this is another rondo that sometimes I actually use this towards the end of a session. I touched on it in a previous talk, just a possession in your shape. So right here, I probably have maybe a shape for a 77 group. And you can add all sorts of stipulations depending on what formation you play and where you're at with your team. So, you know, for instance, this is just an example. I may have my keeper here, my defenders in the back, my midfielder central, my attacker up here, and then a neutral player here. You know, sometimes I'll stand off to the side and play it into my keeper, but pretty much you can add stipulations where maybe you want to play around the back. So you have 3 passes where it comes in, maybe they got to switch it around the back, play into the midfield. And then we need maybe, I don't know, 4 or 5 passes in here. Then we play up forward, 4 or 5 passes up here, and then we play the neutral, okay? But one thing that's important is we progress players. So maybe after we get our passes here, our outside back joins, and now it's a 3v1. We get our passes here, and now both of our outside midfielders join in here, so it's a 3v2. You know, what's important with this too is when you're tailoring it to meet your team's needs that you're training within your system. So like, for example, I have here 11v11. If I'm training a 4-3-3, it's going to be different than training a 3-5-2. So, you know, if I've got my formation set for a 3-4-3, it's going to be really critical that my outside backs join the attack, right? Because in a 3-4-3, that's critical for our success. Our outside backs have to get forward. If I'm training a 3-5-2, I'm not going to want my outside backs to get forward, because in that system, the 3 backs play as if they're one center back. We never want that outside back to get forward, or we can get in big trouble, right? The opposite may be true, where now when I'm in this back zone, my outside midfielder in a 3-5-2 has to get back, so there's 4 back here. And then once we progress, my outside midfielder gets forward. So I think that's just something to think about anytime we're doing a positional rondo, that we're training within our system, and we're working on moving players the way that in a way that agrees with their roles and responsibilities. The next stage of my session, if I'm going to do a possession session, would be the passing pattern. Is it consistent with the topic? Does it set the tone for where I'm going? You know, am I starting to put my initial coaching points in so that I can build off of that as the session goes? And I gave you sort of just two really brief examples. So if I'm going to do some sort of session where I'm working on the midfielders, similar to what I talked about with that rondo, that Ajax rondo, where we worked on our 2 central midfielders. Maybe I'm starting with a passing pattern where I'm working on separation, where one midfielder separates this way, one separates this way, and we play high, low, and out. Just something simple to get them reps and get them thinking about this, so that once we get into the session, they know where I'm going when I say, you guys are in the same line, or we need to separate. You know, obviously we're always focused on the pace of the pass too. And then this was just another one, you know, maybe I'm taking this in the beginning of a session, and maybe from here I'm going into north, south, east, west, which I'm about to show you in a minute. But I just want to give you a little idea of when I would use this. So maybe I have my midfielder in here breaking the line, working on a little half turn. I'm coming out wide, back, and then through. So that might be a passing pattern where I want to talk about the half turn of the midfielder and getting wide in possession. Small-sided, we just talked about this. So this is north, south, east, west. I think we all know this. So just a 1v1 situation in here. My blue player is playing with these two blues, the white player is playing with these two white players. And coaching points, we all know, I'm setting the precedent for when we get into expanded. What's the movement like? Is there a change of speed when I want the ball? That's a huge cue for a player to know, if I've got a teammate who changes their pace, that automatically tells me that they want the ball. Our players checking at angles. What's the timing like of that run? Is their body in the position to play? That's huge. I think we all know that that's a huge one for players in order to play quickly. Are they getting their body in a position to play? Do they know where the pressure is? And can they play with pressure from behind? And the big one here, I think, is just moving the ball forward. Can we get the ball and look to play the other way? And that's going to require a lot of checking and scanning. And then sometimes we forget about these outside players. It's so important that they create those angles and those passing lanes and that they're prepared to play quickly. I can't tell you the amount of times that I do this and players are standing or not prepared to play. And I'm sure that you can all relate to that. I'm sure you've been in that situation coaching this where you've had to address that. Another one here, this is just an example of my midfielder. So let's say I'm having issues in possession with my midfielder. They're not supporting off the ball, and we need to do a better job of finding those seams. So here's one where our central midfielder is playing with all these outside players. So it looks like 4v1, but it's really 7v1. Okay, so all I'm doing is maybe 1.5 to 2 minute rounds, and this midfielder is only looking to combine with all of these outside players. Maybe I add touch restrictions depending. Maybe I make rules where you can't play back to that outside player. You've got to play to somebody else so that they're forced to find those seams. And then after those rounds, maybe these 4 blues switch with the 4 oranges and 1 white switches. Another example I have is possession. Let's say that we have a problem in possession breaking line. So my team does a great job of keeping the ball, but we never actually get forward and we're never actually threatening in the final third. This is a Barcelona possession drill that you can warm up with. So what happens here is these 2 blue players on the ball, they've got to break the line and get into this midfielder. Once they get into that midfielder, they join. Then they can look to break the line here, and then these 2 do the same coming back. So what we're looking here for is just that penetration. Can we break those lines? Can we then support this midfielder to look to break another line? In order, sometimes you can do touch restrictions like 1 and 2 touch. What I found to be really fun with players is that you just add some sort of competition. So if you only have 1 group going, maybe you're just timing every time and seeing which partnership can go the quickest to break the lines. Or maybe you have 2 grids competing and you do like a 2-minute round and you see which group can get back and forth the most amount of times. And then I just gave some examples for expanded. So possession with bumpers, this is pretty much north, south, east, west. We just added more players. I think depending on your numbers, you can always add more bumpers here. But what I think is really important with this is players sometimes think that they need to use these bumpers just to get out of trouble. I think at least for me, I'm always driving them to players that the purpose of this bumper is so that we can get it, we can get it back and look to play out, right? So typically when I do this, there's 3 teams, 2-minute rounds, and that transition has to be quick. When it's time for orange to switch with blue, that transition's got to be really quick. I think this might be the last one. If not, we've got one more. Possession with end zones, I think we know this. So again, this is kind of like, in my mind, this would be like if I've got a team, again, that can possess, but we're having trouble breaking that back line and getting in to be a threat in the final third. So maybe I have a stipulation where I have 5 passes and we have to find a runner in. Or maybe I don't want 5 passes. Maybe I'm trying to just have them get in and break that back line as quickly as they can. But it's gonna create a situation where my players have to time their runs accordingly and get in and receive a ball in a zone that would be threatening actually in a real game. So it's a directional possessional game. Oh, nope, sorry, I have one more. The four-corner possession, I think we all know this one. Maybe you have 6v6 in here, 7v7, whatever it may be. And you're looking to find a player into one of these corners. So a blue player, let's say this blue guy's got the ball, maybe this player's timing is run, he's got to be moving and the ball's got to be moving. So we're working on that final pass, we're working on the timing of runs. And again, it's sort of like breaking a line there. So or maybe we're only used to playing on one side of the field and we're looking to teach our team to move the ball around the field. That was the last one. And then of course, you know, anytime we get into that final stage where we do attackers versus defenders, taking those beginning portions of our session and maybe adding stipulations so that we're staying on topic in a game-like situation. So an example of that might be, you know, maybe my midfielders, I want them to do a better job of combining. I just did that entire session where I started with that beginning rondo where I had my two central midfielders in the middle, that Ajax rondo that I showed you. Maybe I started with that, and then maybe I went into a small-sided with my midfielders, and now maybe my stipulation here in my expanded is we have to hit our high midfielder and come back to our CDM and then play it, or something like that. But you get the picture that we're adding stipulations in this game-like situation so that now we're seeing, has our team taken everything that we've just worked on and can they apply it in a game-like situation and on a bigger field? That was all I have for you guys. I really wanted to kind of create a picture of what that would look like in terms of the rondos, the passing patterns, the small-sided, and then the large-sided. I have some resources here that I'll send you, just articles that I thought were really good pertaining to this topic, and I'll also send that YouTube clip. And I think, you know, if Griff wants to, we can share this this whole thing if I went through some of these quick and a little too fast. But I think most of us here know a lot of these drills. I think the purpose of this just was to kind of reiterate that when we do a possession-based drill, that we have a purpose for what we're doing and that it's really tailored to our team. But that's really all I got for you guys. Does anyone have any questions about that topic or any input or anything they want to share about what they do with their team when they're on this topic? No? Okay. All right. So I guess that's it then. If you have any other questions about it, feel free to email me. We'll send you a copy of this. And again, thank you guys so much for your time tonight. And have a great holiday season with your families.
Thanks, Ash.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Ash.
guys.
Thanks, Ash.
Thanks, guys.